Welcome to the Soul Mirror. I'm your host, Shreya. Today's conversation is a mirror for the soul. We are exploring what happens when success looks good on the outside but feels hollow within, and how listening to that quiet inner call can transform career into calling. Today, my guest brings a bold, soulful lens to work, purpose, and the courage to choose what truly energizes us. So, welcome, Baiba. I'm honored to have you on my show.
So nice to be here, Shreya, and everybody who's joining.
Thank you so much. And you spent years climbing the corporate ladder while feeling your inner spark fade. What was the first moment you realized something was misaligned?
Yes, and I love the name of your podcast, Soul Mirror, because I think career or work or business, it doesn't even matter what form work takes. It's just one of the mirrors exactly to your soul. And for me, it was a process. It wasn't a one moment thing, but the first um searching or seeking where I started to know that there is a misalignment, where I felt misalignment with my own soul, was in my 20s. And it wasn't even propelled by work. It was just propelled by how I was feeling inside. I didn't feel happy. I kind of constantly felt like there's something missing, and I just wanted to feel better.
Yes. And like looking back, were there subtle signs you ignored at the time?
The subtle signs, for me, they were not so subtle. I think that I started veering off and walking a path of somebody else's making already in childhood. So I think it was a pretty profound, like, different walk that I started to walk early on. And the signs for me had to get pretty loud, in terms of my own inner state, of my own discontent, kind of dissatisfaction, of wanting to feel better. And then, work was one of the aspects, where it played out. And it wasn't like, I think in this world and this experience, it's not like everything is bad. And a lot of the experiences are the mirrors, and they are inviting us to kind of wake up to what we really want, what our soul is telling us, and inviting us to correct and maybe realign. So, um, for me, the sign got pretty bad where I was also experiencing physical symptoms in terms of anxiety. I was feeling a lot of anxiety many days. I was feeling very stressed and kind of even a couple years ago, I think one of the propelling symptoms that I felt, I just started feeling like my own spark was dimming. So I felt a lack of enthusiasm and felt a lack of ability to connect with joy and happiness and kind of that life and feeling of aliveness inside of myself.
Yes, that's really powerful because many people feel those whispers but dismiss them as weakness when they might actually be the wisdom.
And exactly, because they are so trained. I have so much compassion because I've done it myself. For years I had that, and maybe anybody listening has kind of that yearning, that subtle whisper call on your heart, some that little voice, that kind of like that little knowing that says there must be something more, or I know that I came here for more than this. And it can kind of be triggered in some of the moments of the day. But then we are so good at being trained, to show up for the next day exactly as we showed up for the previous day, because we have responsibilities and obligation, and we know kind of how to operate in one model. So I had those whispers for years, and even though I heard them a little bit, like many times, and I would do some work, I would do some meditation, some seeking. So it wasn't like completely ignoring them, but not also fully leaning into hearing my own soul.
Yes. And also, you speak about reconnecting with essence. How do you define essence in that context of work?
In the context of work. So essence is definitely a felt experience. So I'll try to give you a cognitive definition, right? Because our mind wants to know the definitions, right? Exactly what is it. Well, first of all, I invite you to, when you hear the word your essence, is there like a whole body reaction? Do you have maybe a slight resonance, right? When you're like, okay, that is familiar. I kind of pick it up somatically, right? I feel it, something bigger, something expanding. So, um, that's what I mean by a felt experience. So some of the listeners might just resonate with that. In terms of like a cognitive, mind-based definition, I would say it is that knowing. And, I actually have thought about, is it the same thing as soul? It might be the same thing as, people use the name your soul, but essentially it's this ethereal, this bigger animating life energy that is behind your physical body. So one of the expressions of how your essence manifests or talks to you is the language of intuition. So those little whispers, right? Those little nudges that you hear are coming from your essence through your intuition. It's kind of like this ethereal energy body.
Yeah. And also, can someone uncover their essence without leaving their current job?
I'm sure it depends. It's a very individual journey. You are a unique soul print and you have a unique path. And I think you have your essence within you. So it's really reconnecting with it and building on that kind of the hearing the signal from your essence. So yeah, you can do it in many different forms. I can only share my experience because I was working, right? And I will say I had a hard time fully reconnecting with my own essence while working just because I was giving so much energy. There was so much energy that was given to work and daily responsibilities. Like I have a son, taking care of your household, cooking, clean, like all the things, right, that we have. That I was doing a lot of like trying to reconnect with my essence for years, but I would say it was when I stepped away and created much more time for some of the deconditioning and some of the deeper aspects of unlayering that I was able to bring it up more and more online because it does take energy to manifest. So essentially, like how many people are very much into manifesting or creating what they desire, but it outflows from your essence and manifestation requires energy. So it just depends on your own unique situation. If your work is less draining, then it's probably easier or will take a shorter time, but it's an individual journey.
Yes. I think I love that perspective that it challenges the idea that purpose requires a dramatic exit rather than an inner recalibration.
Yeah. Because your work might be totally in line with your essence. It's an experience that you need to see parts of you, experience parts of you, because many times we're also manifesting and creating based on contrast in our own experiences. So every experience is very valid, very valuable to kind of activate and wake up to parts of your own essence. So there's nothing, you're not on the wrong path. There's nothing really lost. It's more like, can you see it more and more clearly sooner going forward?
Yes. And also, your career alchemy method blends the sacred with practical. Where do people struggle most with trusting this approach?
I think it starts with trusting yourself because I love how you and I appreciate how you highlighted both the sacred, the spiritual, and then the practical. People want to jump into the practical. Right. They want like the 5 steps and they want to know, okay, which is then the path, right? And now, but you can build a house of cards on the wrong foundation. So that's essentially kind of what was my journey. I had a successful career that started, as an individual contributor, then led to management and then um, bigger team management, and in a way, there were a lot of good things, and it wasn't all bad. And it also depended on the year and the role that I had, and the people I was working with. But in a way, right, we can make money, we can have all the external things and validation where people say, well, you have all, right, it looks so good from the outside, but inside, you feel like you've built a house of cards. So we kind of want to get to the mind, right? Our mind is like now has taken over and is running the show. So the biggest problem is really, or the opportunity is before you build that structure, that practical, is that we're building it on the foundation of your own essence and soul.
Yes, I think that tension between meaning and money is so real. And also, many women feel called to something more but fear disappointing others. How do you help them navigate that guilt?
Well, the guilt is a thing, right? And the guilt is just a track. I mean, I call it like we have these little tracks or circuitry that we start to run over and over again. So if you think about a racetrack in sports, we start to run these conditioned tracks of somebody else's making that's not even our own. So guilt is one of them. It's kind of like, okay, how many laps of guilt are you going to make? Are you going to spend your life on that guilt circuitry? Because I mean, just observe how often you are feeling this guilt because you can feel the guilt about not being with your kids, then not being in the right work, not working enough, not giving enough time to your parents. I mean, there's so many opportunities to run that guilt circuitry. But at some point of time, you have to ask, like, is it serving you? Yeah. And like, how many years do you want to keep running and giving energy to that? So it's actually like a pretty big awakening to start realizing that it's just kind of like a circuitry or track that we can start. If you think right now it's like so active, if that is your experience when you're listening, you feel a lot of guilt. And I know a lot of people do, and a lot of women do. It's like just think about it as you're feeding it by giving energy to it. And maybe you can decide to say, okay, I don't want to give my life energy to that anymore. I'll give it to something else and start kind of fading that track. And another thing is children, for example, and you feel guilty, sometimes like if we want to create something and fully actualize, including finding our purpose, if we don't, it takes a lot of courage and it does take a lot of energy. And if we cannot do it for ourselves because there's that guilt conditioning, essentially it's conditioning. It's not even of your own making in most of the cases. But that you will do it for your children. Sometimes that can give a woman more of motivation or force or kind of this initial push to eject from it and to pursue it because if you think about it like your children, you want the best for your children, or it could be nieces and nephews or kids around the world, whatever is something that is really motivating and moving for you, for your own heart, is that they don't really listen to what you say. They look at how you live. So I had this moment years ago when at work they asked, us to go home and ask our kids to draw, how do you see mommy? Or, how do you see daddy? Ask your child to make a drawing. And my son drew me sitting on behind the desk, behind the computer. That was and he was like 6 or 7 or 8. I don't remember. And that was, this is what kids, they are so impressionable, right? And that's how they see you in very simple terms, in your day to day. So if you feel guilty to pursue your purpose for yourself, then do it for your kids or for somebody else's kids, because that's how we can have the biggest impact of this world. If you are a fully realized being, you will light up the world from inside out. And then the kids will see you, how you act, how you behave, how you are energized. And they will internalize it as a possibility versus internalizing this drudgery, this Monday through Friday suffering, and this hard world, hard day to day reality that then they think that they will face when they grow up.
Yes. It's the reframing is very, very liberating. And also, if someone feels stuck, drained, and anxious today, what is one small act of alignment they can take this week?
Hmm. I love that question. Thank you, Shreya. So if you feel drained and stuck, I would start with just giving to yourself, like, as you have either a cup of coffee or tea or water, sometime, whether in the morning or at night, because sometimes it's easier for us to create like the 10 minutes of sacred, just sitting and doing nothing time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe it's on the weekend. And really, like, put your hand on your heart, take a breath in and into your heart, and then ask yourself, what do you really need? Because if you're drained, it could be that you need sleep. It could be that you need to rest. It could be that you need to move your body. And it doesn't have to be a hardcore movement. Maybe you need to go for a walk. Maybe you just need some gentle stretching. Maybe you need a wholesome meal. Maybe you've been eating just cookies and ice cream. I don't know. And, what is your body? If you really, what is your body needing many times on a physical level? Because to start walking that walk and to manifest what you want, it will require energy from you. So you need to nourish your body. I actually have a podcast episode. So I host my own podcast called Career in Technicolor, where I share many of these tools. And Shreya, if you're open to it, I'll send you the link to that specific podcast that actually talks about the first step.
Yes, I will be really pleased if you send me this. Like it's so beautiful, and it's reassuring to know transformation does not start with clarity. It's start with movement. And thank you for this conversation. This is so beautiful. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
I You can go to Career and Technicolor podcast. It's on Apple Podcast or Spotify, whatever is your phone and most accessible to you. And hopefully, you can just go to the show notes of um of Shreya's podcast, Soul Mirror, and navigate to it.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and know more from you because you're truly an amazing person. And to all my listeners, if this conversation starts something in you, don't ignore it. Purpose doesn't shout, it invites. Take one honest step toward what nourishes you, and trust that your work can be life giving, not depleting. The magic is not out there, it's already within you, waiting to be activated. And do not forget to hit the follow button, subscribe, and also feel free to share your thoughts because your ears deserve premium content. Thank you.